Hey, this is Deepesh. I want to show you in this video campaign budget optimized setup, so CBO, and how I use the CBO campaigns specifically for scaling. There are different ways that people try and use it. So when I actually started off with CBO when it first came out, I tried to use it for graduation testing, but it just wasn't giving stable delivery and it made it harder to get results. Maybe that will change in future. But right now, the winning formula I've found for CBO is specifically for scaling and specifically after you've done your testing. So the first stage that I do is graduation testing to find ad sets and ads that have good potential. I then move it to a normal website conversion campaign. So assuming e-commerce here, then I test that against my pixel for scaling, whether it's purchase or initiate checkout or whatever it is. And when I'm confident that that ad set is working over a period of a few days, then I move it into CBO. And that's what I found to be the most predictable way of getting good ad sets and ads into your CBO campaign and giving it the best success, best chance of success. So by the time your ad and ad set have gone into the CBO campaign, at least in my view, it should be fully tested. You should know that this ad set and this ad combo is absolutely going to work. So that's the first part. The second part is, and not all accounts have it, when you set up your campaign bid strategy, my preference is to go with highest value or lowest cost. And again, especially for e-com, because I don't mind paying a higher CPA if I'm getting an even higher return on ad spend. And this feature is still rolling out, so by the time you watch this video, I'm hoping it has been rolled out to your account. But this allows you to balance the CPA versus what's more important for, especially for e-com, is return on ad spend. So that's the other setting which has made a big difference for me. You can do manual bid, that's absolutely fine, and I've run manual bid with CBO. It's actually a really good opportunity to test scaling bids and things like that, and I'll cover that off in a separate video. But right now I want to I want you to follow how I set up a CBO for scaling. So where you have it, highest value, if not then just lowest cost, you set your budget at the top level for your CBO. So if I go into this one here, so the other thing I want to note is when I've been testing my CBOs, the other thing I found for consistent results is actually grouping to an extent your audiences together. So in this example, the one I'm hovering over, I've got a CBO of lookalikes between 1 and 3%. And that when I first started with CBOs, I was testing interests, behaviors, different levels of lookalikes, 1%, 5%, etc. But now what I've actually found that works is when you group your interests into one CBO, your lookalikes, etc., there seems to be some learning that goes on at the campaign level, and it seems to recognize those conversions that have gone in. And one thing I spoke to the auction team about is the conversions, although you need 50 conversions per ad set right now to get your normal ad set and kind of campaign working, with a CBO, it seems to be that 50 does count at the campaign level. And so if you have a similar style of audience and similar quality, that all counts to giving better and more stable performance as well. So in this example, I've got 1 to 3% lookalike. If I show you this account, then we have them grouped out. So I've got interests, I've got 1% lookalikes, 1 to 2%, 2 to 3. With these, it really depends on the size of your audiences. With this particular campaign here, I chose to have my 1 and 3% in one campaign. So that kind of worked out well for me as well. So that's just something to bear in mind. Like, it's not a hard and fast rule that you have to split your lookalikes from your interests. I do still include interests as well. In fact, I think this one here, I've got some interests as well as lookalikes, and it works well. So it's something to test. It's absolutely, you just need to be testing these things to make sure that you've got the best setup and making sure it's set up well for your account as well. So that's number one. The next part of setting up a successful CBO campaign is the budget. Now, if you're starting off with a budget that is far too low, you're not going to give Facebook the opportunity to properly test all the permutations. So let's say you've got a CBO campaign with 5 ad sets. So right off the bat, you've got 5 variations that Facebook needs to feed the budget into. And if each of those 5 variations has 3 ads, now there's 15 permutations that Facebook has to test. So if you're testing a CBO, let's say it's, for the sake of argument, £30 a day, your budget's not going to go far at all. That's literally £2 per variation. And it's just not enough for Facebook to test. My rule of thumb, at least from testing and my kind of advice for you is roughly £100 per ad set, or you could say $100 per ad set. So if you're running 5 ad sets in your CBO, then your budget should be around £500 minimum. So here you can see we've got four of these ad sets were live. So this is actually paused because it was a promotion that's no longer running. I have got 4 ad sets in there and my budget is £500 a day. That gives me enough coverage to make sure that there's enough budget being spread across all of these different permutations. And you can see there's different ad sets that have been run in this time, and they've been paused out based on performance. So, I'm looking at the kind of performance at the ad set level and at the ad level. Now, when it comes to optimizing and doing ad sniping for my CBOs, I start off at the ad level. So if I go into my ad level, I want to make sure that I'm cutting ads and not giving me a good performance. I kind of, the way I kind of do it is based on the average order value of the account, based on when I expect sales to come in or add to carts and the kind of typical add to cart price. I will cut those bad performers out. And so when I set up my rules, I have one level that will look at ads and cut bad ads as soon as I can. So for example, let's say I know that with this account, for example, when the add to cart range is about 26 to maybe £30, generally, I know that the performance is going to be good. Now, one thing I will say about this particular setup is we've got the 4-funnel system working. So we've got this CBO at the cold level. We've then got warm level retargeting, and then we've got hot level retargeting as well. And the blended return on ad spend bottoms out at 3.5 to 4x. And I know at the top of the funnel, I don't actually look at ROAS because this is a high ticket e-com store. I think the average order value is about £200. And because of that, I know that people are not going to buy in their first visit. And it's really important to understand when you're running traffic to cold and you're running a slightly higher ticket AOV, it's going to be hard to get the data back to that ad set because the sale is probably going to happen tomorrow or in the second or third visit. And by that time, your retargeting's kicked in. So because I understand that, I'm actually optimizing on further metrics further back. And for this particular account, I know that if the add to cart rate is below £30, generally it bottoms out. The other thing about CBO, which I found again through testing, is setting the optimized event window to 1 day click. So if I go down into here, so this is the ad set setting, the conversion window at 1 day after clicking, I've tested 1 day, 7 day click plus 1 day view, etc. Now, this was the thing that got CBO working for me, was literally just changing this one metric, this conversion window, as well as the kind of budget side of things. But this was the big breakthrough. And I think what is actually happening is because every day Facebook is taking your budget and then deciding which ad sets to push it into. To an extent, it's resetting its learning every day. So that the 7 day window, I think actually causes more harm than good. And that's why I recommend, regardless of your average order value, that you do use 1 day after clicking, because that 1 day data is what's going to be most relevant and important for the next day, because the budget's going to be variable. Like every day, your ad set budgets will vary based on performance, based on your rules that are kicking in and how you're optimizing as well. So that's a big thing that made a difference there. And then like you can see here, the budgets do get spread out. Not necessarily across the ad sets that have the best performance as well. And that's why, so there's 2 things you can do. One question I get asked is, if one ad set is working better than the other, should I pause the ad set? My preference is to start pausing at the ad level. And then once you've paused out the ads, if there's no ads running, then the ad set will obviously stop working anyway. But then what I do is restart the ad set and the ads the next day. I'll take you through the rules in a separate video. And I do this automated. So if there's an ad that's paused out in a CBO campaign, I'll restart it, let it get paused out, restart it. Let that happen for 3 days, and if it continues, then I kill it and I don't restart it. And that just allows me to give enough breadth and depth in terms of the testing to give the ads a chance. Because if I've been through graduation and it's kind of hit this level, I'm pretty confident it will work. But sometimes the ads just fatigue out, and that can happen quite quickly as well. So that's just another thing to think about Then, in terms of ads per ad set, so I'm aiming for between 2 and 3. And the reason I say that is because if I have 2 ads, and I can also cycle them in if the ads pulls them out, then it's giving me a higher chance of the CBO testing it in the auction quickly enough and well enough. If I've got 3 ads, it's kind of okay. 4, 5, 6, then you're really spreading that budget. Then you really need higher budgets at your CBO level, and that's a trade-off. So my preference is in my CBO campaign, 1 ad set for every £100 or $100 minimum. Can you go lower? Yes, you can. Then I would reduce the number of ads to 2. So let's say, if I look at my minimum, I would probably look at a minimum £50 or $50 per ad set, ideally 100, ideally more. If I'm going down that lower level of 50, then I will reduce the ads down to 2 as well. So that's the other thing to bear in mind. And then at the ad level, I'm also looking at the same metrics. And, if I look at the performance here, for example, you've got the add to cart rate. Some of them I let them go because you sometimes get the situation where your ads are actually performing okay. And if I am hitting my ROAS target, now this is a high ticket ecom, £200. My ROAS target for cold is between 1 and 1.5. So here you can see at the moment this CBO campaign is doing 1.5. So as far as I'm concerned, it's on track because I know my retargeting kicks in at about 3.5, 4, maybe even 4.5 ROAS. I'm not spending much there, but I'm sucking in a lot of sales there as well. So actually the leverage I've got is if I want my target for this, which is about 300% ROAS, then as long as I'm maintaining this level, I'm good. But the second thing, and this is a really important thing, even if you're not getting sales and you're getting a good add to cart rate, it often bottoms out to sales in your retargeting campaign. So one mistake sometimes I see people make is, for example, this £35 add to cart is off target. It would be right based on our rules to pause it out. The direct return on ad spend is off target. However, what I found is when I actually pause this out, my retargeting performance also dropped. So there's something about the quality of this particular ad set and sending traffic to my site. Yes, it's costing me more, but it does have a direct impact on my retargeting as well. So that's something to really keep in mind. So that's kind of the setup structure. To show you then what that looks like in the high spend accounts that I've got right now, you can see here along the left, I've got CBOs by 1% lookalike, interest 2-3%. We've gone a bit more granular at this level. Do you need to be so much? So 1 to 2, 2 to 3%. You don't have to. It really depends on your spend levels and audience sizes as well. This I think is another kind of £200 AOV store. And then I also wanted to show you a slightly lower AOV as well. So this is, I think, $40 or $50 AOV account. And the same principle applies. So I've got the budget set for the CBO. And actually, this is just a test that we were doing. So, if you're looking at 6,000 budget a day, this was actually just a test because we wanted to test on this particular one, what would happen if we started the day really high? Because on this account, we found that actually sales came in really early and then we cut aggressively. So, with this, you're not necessarily going to spend $6,000. but you do want to get the best auctions as fast as possible, build that data up, and then if performance is bad, then you cut it out. And on most days, we didn't spend anywhere near 6,000 as well, but it's just another way of testing. And then again, if you look at the ad sets here, so originally this was $600 a day, 5 ad sets, same principle applies. And with this one in particular, because the AOV was whatever it is, $40, $50, we were bottoming out at the top of the funnel with a ROAS of 2, and then with our retargeting, I think we're hitting 9 or 10. So overall, we're getting I think, was it 4 return on ad spend, or maybe 5, and so we're getting a great performance. But that kind of target comes out because I know what I'm expecting for the account, and I don't jump into a CBO until I know my targets. That's why I do grad testing. That's why I then go into my normal scaling to see what my numbers should look like. Then when I hit CBO, then I know the actions to take. This one, for example, the cap for cost per active cart, I know is about $7 to $8 max. We usually get initiate checkout by $10, and then the kind of sale comes in, and you know that's our kind of overall benchmark for performance on the account. With this one in particular, we didn't have rules for this one. This was done manually. You don't need rules in place, especially whilst you're getting used to how CBOs work and how your metrics work and what kind of metrics to look out for. You know, when you're doing more significant spends like here, then I would be kind of looking at rules to absolutely take care of everything. But initially, don't run it with rules. Get used to how the ad set needs to be handled, how pulling out bad ads based on performance. So for example, I know if I've spent more than $10 without an add to cart, I pause the ad. If I've spent more than, I think the boundary is $12 without initiate checkout, I pause the ad. If I've spent more than $20, $25 without sale, pause the ad. Because I know the cold ad sets here are bringing in sales, and then kind of making decisions to kind of offset that. So for example, if I look at this one here, this one is, no, not that one there. So let's look at, so that one there is still running. The add to cart rate is, or it was still running. The add to cart rate is slightly higher. It's just making kind of your decisions based on what you can see, whether you continue running that one, for example. So if we look at the ad level, just by simply pausing out this ad, we've got better performance. The ROAS on this one is slightly better. There's still more tweaking we can do. For this one in particular, I would duplicate the ad out, make some tweaks, and see if I can get performance. So I would go through the manual process first, and then set rules once you know how your account's working, because then you know what your add to cart rate needs to be, when you're looking to get your sales, what a good ROAS is throughout the day, etc. So in the separate video, I'll cover off the rules, but hopefully that gives you an overview of how I'm kind of running the CBO process and how that's helping with scaling as well.